As we have already set up this entire arrangement in, the manner how we want all of the parts that we created to, go one after another, we need to take care of, progression between them. So when dealing with the transitions from, one of these pieces to the other, we need to have some cohesive progression so that, everything progressing from one part to the other sounds natural, sounds connected. So we need to make these connected. So let's hear how actually these transitions sound like. What do they sound like? So we don't have to listen to the entirety of this part. We can listen to the end of it and see how it passes into the next. So that progression seems nice, that transfer seems nice because we have these FX right here to accentuate that something is going to happen right there. So we have that FX, letting us know that something is going to happen on the next bar. And then we have the crash and the impacts that actually help us point out that transition part right there. So imagine if we had none of those FX. Let's see what it sounds like without them. It does work just as well, but with the FX, we just have a better idea of something important is going on in the song. Okay, so I had to, manage the volume of the riser. It wasn't loud enough. Now we have that transition working well for us. Let's check out the next one. So let's see if we have nice cohesive progression for the next transition we have between these two parts. Now that sounded nice enough. I like the actual pause right here that's introduced. So, those kind of pauses and silences give us a better impact once this drop actually starts. So we have all this rising, 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 and then we go into a pause so that this, next piece, when it hits, everything gets more impact. We get an illusion of more impact since we introduced some silence before it. So everything sounds louder with more energy, but that's for the next lesson, the energy management. Now, this transition sounds cool enough. Let's see about the next one. So right here, from one part of the drop to the other. Sounds good enough to me. Next is this transition. That sounds good enough. I think I might just stop all the drums for at least one beat like that. So all of them, I just marked the group, and when I mark a portion of the group, it actually selects everything inside of that group. So I deleted those. And I'm going to do the same thing for the sub. I'm going to do the same thing for the bass, which is right there, not actually even playing, so I don't have to do anything. So let's see that. Nice. So in this piece, we're only letting all of these synths go through. Now, I could do another thing right there, and that's stopping this lead also. Let's see that. So, voluming down on how many things actually play that last note, that last chord. Good. I like that. Maybe even dial down on these. No, I don't like that. So this actually sounds good. Good. Let's see about the next one. Now this one I really don't like. So we're going from a rising point where actually everything rises, introduces a pause, of course. And when it hits, actually nothing happens. So what I think now is that this pause right here, we don't need it. We don't have to make a pause because we are not going into a hit where everything's going to start again. We're actually going into kind of a silence. So I don't want that pause to happen right there. I will try to extend that. The reason I can't extend all of them because one of those is unextendable. It's just a WAV file that's really short, just like that. And I extended too much of that too. I extended as much as that WAV file could extend. So in action, to remedy that, I could, join this one into a cohesive one audio like this, consolidating this like that, making that an actual loop like this. And this will help me further down in the arrangement, handling anything that involves this track, this channel. So I could do that, make that actually also a loop, so it's easier for me to handle all the arrangement decisions. Right there, done. So let's see what else can we do to make this, more feasible, that transition. Okay, that's a good transition. Now, what I don't like in this next part, it doesn't sound like a cohesive progression, which is the point of this lesson. It doesn't sound cohesive because out of all of this rising, we go into nothing. And if something started playing aside of all of these, strings and the orchestra, that would be cool. So I have this fade in. Maybe if I remove the fade in and everything just starts playing immediately, that's going to sound better. Okay, so that sounds a bit better. I think I want to introduce this melody right here. Okay, one more thing, it's too short. This does not introduce enough elements, I would say, until this part begins. So I'm thinking that right here, we don't need such a low point where nothing plays. So I'm just going to extend these all the way through also, maybe like that. They don't follow the same chord progress. I'm going to do this. Actually, let me see if I can do this a bit better. Yep. So we can do that. That's right. It follows everything nicely. So let's see what it sounds like when it passes from this side to that side. Now I think it's too much. Now I think that when it starts right here, it starts with too many elements, and no, I don't actually like it. I think it's the piano that bugs me. Let me check. It's not the piano. Too much. Maybe this should stop. Yep, like this. I like it more this way. Now this next transition, I don't like it. I liked it better the way it was done right here. You see, it starts with the bass and not all the leads, not all these melodies playing. So those are not existent right there. So it starts with all the basses instead of starting with all the leads. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that same drop. Let's do this. Okay, try the same drop like this one. I'm gonna copy all of that. I'm gonna move right here, delete everything that's here, and paste. Now let's see what it sounds like. That sounds good to me. Now, about this transition, we know it's good. We checked it here already. That's done. Let's check the last transition to this part. Okay, now the ending actually sucks. I don't like that. What I need is another impact right here at the end, because this FX right here, it just stops so suddenly. So it's either that now that sounds more reasonable. Just like that. Okay, now that we have all the transitions working well, I'm gonna leave it as it is, but one thing I have to explain is why all of these sound cohesive. Why do they actually continue one onto another in a good way? Well, you can see that first of all, I have all of these FX that actually help those transitions. So every time I have a riser, you know, like this, I have a riser that goes upwards, then I have a crash, then I have some sort of an impact right after. So that really works well because, you know, all of these, yeah, just like that. What I had before is this kick drum was warped. This kick drum with the reverb was warped to follow the BPM of Ableton, and I really don't need that, since I don't want that reverb, you know, time stretched. It doesn't really sound all that natural once you time stretch a reverb. So I'm going to disable that. And why is this helping me? Well, I have all of these effects that create rising, so to create tension, and then the release when they actually have an impact on the beginning with a crash and this impact right here. The only thing that's not in that impact is the beginning of it. And I made sure that the beginning is not in there like this, since I want the impact of the crash and not of this. Yep, just like that. So with the crash together, yeah, it just comes in a tiny bit after, so they don't ruin the impact of all the drums that actually hit that first note. Okay, that's just a tiny bit of that, you know, low filtered noise that just, you know, covers everything like a carpet. So aside of having all of these FX that actually help those transitions with sounding more natural, like you were expecting those transitions to happen when you have all these risers and impacts to mark those transitional, you know, moments in the song. What I also do have, you will notice, is that some of the elements that were playing in, you know, a part before the one that's starting are retained. So I have this main synth that plays the main chord progression. That one also played before, now it plays after, and even if it didn't play before, I still have this little part to accentuate that it's coming, that this synth is going to be playing in the next part of the song, just like right here. So maybe we can even delete that part of the song right there. So maybe we can even skip it. Let's say in this rising, maybe we can turn that off and see what it sounds like without it. So it's not, the same build up twice. Not bad, actually. Now, one other thing I have is this. Maybe I could skip that too altogether. Nice. So I can even make this second build-up a bit more empty, since we have all of these elements playing all the time in the entirety of the song. And it's not a long song, don't get me wrong. They're not going to be bothering anyone. They're not going to be thinking, it's too much of the chords. But it's just the variety in it where I can make this other build-up a tiny bit different. So now this impact is quite more empty, after this. Let's see how this switches into that. Quite nice. I like it. So I'm going to keep it that way. I'm going to keep this build up quite empty, just like it is right here. And being that empty and going into this entire drop where, have the basses, it's probably going to make more impact with all of these elements jumping in this, all of a sudden. So let's hear the entire build up with the drop coming. So you see, even this small piece of that one element that comes after is enough in that complete silence to actually, give us a clue of what is going to happen next. And it gives us a nice, chord progression that really tries to resolve itself, and it resolves itself with the first chord that happens right here. So it gives us a nice continuation. And this is what helps us, those elements that actually appear in the part that's preceding the part that's coming, we have the same element, and that gives the listener some clue of what's about to happen. So it's not like we're dropping all of those chords out of the blue they never heard of. They actually heard of those, the idea that was supposed to play after. This does not mean in any way that transitions where you have something totally different jump in out of nowhere are bad. They're just a bit harder to pull off, actually. So you have a lot of those transitions in, dubstep music where let's say that the break is quite melodic, has a completely different theme, and then once the drop comes in, that's the first time you ever hear those, growling basses, everything else that happens, most of the drums actually. So what's usually done in dubstep is that you have the main pieces of those drums, usually the kick and the snare, maybe even the entire drum section, play on top of that melodic structure that's happening before the drop, before all of the basses come in, to actually, give you a clue of what's going to happen, to give you a clue of the, speed and the feeling of the song. And once it drops in, not everything is so unknown to the listener. So right here, to ensure that I have, cohesive transitions, I have elements that connect those transitions, like elements that play before and after the change, the swap, the switch has happened, like right there. So the drums drop in completely, the bass drops in for the first time ever. You never hear the bass before in the song. So right here, let's see what the song sounds like in its entirety right now, what the entire arrangement sounds like. Let's hear it once. So there you go, that's the entire arrangement as we have it so far. We'll meet up in the next lesson for energy management.